Most Kenyans watched as the deal was signed and heard the speeches after the deal.
But our in-house Dr. Mercy Korir sat the KMPDU Secretary General Dr. Ouma Oluga down for the specifics of the deal and details of what the doctors have gone through these 100 days.
Take a look.
For me, there are two things that I'm looking at. One is what is the eventual outcome? And if you look at the collective bargaining agreement, there are a number of issues that have been discussed in the collective bargaining agreement. Particularly important are issues of training, issues of internship, issues of terms and conditions of work, which do not take effect immediately, But it is important that such a document is protected, and it has a lifespan of for 4 years, because there was a lot of lack of trust, and I think that is why we could only trust a process where the return to work formula with all the documents we have done goes to court, which even includes those timelines. So, the court has the greater say in terms of even summoning all of these people to finally execute. And I think that's an assurance, because there was that lack of trust and faith that by themselves the counties and will do it. Yeah.
So do you
so yes,
trust
there's
the government to sign the CBA within those 60 days and actually implement it?
We do. Actually, when this strike was beginning, there was the ruling by Justice Monica Mbaro on 6th of October. So if you look at that return to work formula very well, it's very powerful, because it says, number one, if you look at the beginning, it's one of those that says the Salaries and Remuneration Commission has been following the advice. And that is important, because you remember even the nursing allowances and the clinical officers allowances that have been given, there has been circulars from SRC that they never gave the advice. So the monies that the doctors have gained in this particular return to work formula, and that will actually be in the CBA, have that. So that's already protection. So there will be no county saying, oh, this ministry saying this, or if you're not working here. The second thing that is also very important is that we have now changed the emergency call allowance to doctor's allowance. That has a lot of significance to doctors in two ways. One is that the payment of that allowance is no longer pegged on doing a call, because in the collective bargaining agreement we have agreed that doctors will only work for 40 hours. Okay, so the greater good for doctors is that they will only work for 40 hours. Of course, that will have to wait for about 60 days, but that the emergency call allowance will be changed to a doctor's allowance, which means, and what we agreed in the CBA is that the extra hours worked shall be paid as per the law. I think for those who know that they are the board gazetted rates, and I think therefore, and that's why for me, I think the doctors have gained much more than they were asking for, because and that's why we had the wisdom to change the emergency call allowance to doctor's allowance, because we knew in the CBA now it's 40 hours. So in essence, actually, the doctors have gained a lot for very many years to come. There's something else called a scheme of service. If you look at one of the return to work formula, doctors will be placed in the correct job groups upon signing of this agreement. So there's a scheme of service that we developed last year as a union and the Ministry of Health, that already in itself gives doctors a one job group upgrade for majority of them, because you find the medical officer only stays in a job group for 1 year, the M. So you finish internship, then you're in job group M for only 1 year, then you go to N. And then if you're a consultant with a master's degree, whether it's in medicine or in administrative health economics or whatever it is, you go directly to job group Q. So that's also another very, very great benefit, because right now what has been causing strikes at the county level before this strike were issues of promotions. So now all doctors who are consultants, who have stagnated, some in job group P for forever, some in job group M, like here in Nairobi County, they will now have to be placed in their correct job groups, which is Q and above, So essentially what this return to work formula also means is that if you're a medical officer and you are more than 1 year in service, you should not be in job group M. Okay, so all medical officers except the ones that were just employed recently will be in N, and those ones who have stayed for more than 4 years will definitely go to P. So in essence, if you look at the net gain for the doctors in terms of salaries, it's probably much more than 80,000 shillings for each.
But
yeah.
we know all too well that the problem is with implementation.
Moving forward, we have to ensure that we hold counties and the national government accountable. And you know, if you look at, again, that return to work formula, up there it's written that pursuant to strike notice and the ruling. So that ruling is where we are going to file this return to work. And what that means is that the court itself will monitor the implementation. But beyond the court, we also have the people who are mediating, the religious leaders, the Law Society of Kenya, the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. And this is a public interest issue. So I don't think that there should be any county that wants to take us back to the dark ages of not having doctors in the hospital by refusing either to interpret or to implement simple things. But moving forward, I think the most important thing in any implementation is what we call goodwill, you know, and goodwill is based on restoring relationships. And for us as a union, we have a very long journey to restore relationships, because we want to work in harmony with the employer to improve things just for everyone, for every single citizen. So we know that there will be some challenges in implementation, especially for the first few months. And yes, of course, we want to tell the members of the public to also keep vigil, because this has been a public interest issue. In fact, the doctors have been on this strike simply because the Kenyans have supported this strike. So we've had moments. I think for me, I want to, after some time, I will start writing a series on this particular industrial dispute, just so that we can all draw lessons, but more importantly, so that there can be documentation. I will start writing a small series on the strike.
Talking of jail,
yeah.
how was that experience
Wow,
like?
jail is not good. It's not. You don't wish it for your enemy. Jail takes away life and hope from you. And I think for us, for me particularly, I want to. We will forgive those who jailed us, but it's something that we will never forget. We will never forget it, and it's not. I think we didn't do any wrong to be jailed, and I think that's part of this strike being mishandled. You know, threats, intimidations, jailing. My experience in jail was jail in itself is not good, but the people in jail are very friendly. I found prisoners who I promised I'll take for them a television. I will still do, because they took get care of me. I found prison warders that are very friendly and that who also took very good care of me with a lots of respect. I hope that all the Kenyan doctors, as we move forward, will still keep our promise of taking medical camps and particularly for me, taking a television to committee.
Tomorrow we expect the State of the Nation address by the President.
Yeah.
What do you expect him to say in regards to the healthcare sector?
You know, we've had the privilege of meeting the head of state during this strike, and we want to thank him, because I don't think there's any other union that has met the head of state when they are on strike. And I think that was a show of good gesture when we went in Mombasa. There are three things that the head of state said in Mombasa, and I have said this before. Number one, he said the health sector needs reforms. Number two, he said that doctors need a different grading structure. And number three, he said that we'll need a health service commission. I can't speak for what he will say, but I expect that given what has happened, given also his particular, he's put a lot of work into this strike, to an extent that even at some point, just like us, he was also frustrated. But finally, it's to an end, thanks to his efforts. I expect that maybe we'll draw a little bit of those lessons, particularly on issues of health reforms moving forward, and particularly on the issue of Health Service Commission and doctors having a different grading structures. Otherwise, then we will always have this cycle, and this is not good for our country.